Night attack at Bun Tun, 20th of February 1967. Official history of the U.S. Army Special Forces in the Republic of Vietnam. At 0745 on the 17th of February 1967, the 1st Company of the 3rd Nung Battalion, 3rd Corps Mobile Strike Force, or Mike Force, reinforced with Battalion Headquarters Section and Heavy Weapons Platoon, arrived at Bu Dap to reinforce the camp and conduct offensive operations to the east of the camp. On the 20th of February, this company made contact with more than a battalion from the 12th North Vietnamese Army, regiment of the 7th NVA Division, which was armed with 57mm recoilless rifles, 82mm mortars, and the standard enemy small arms. The NVA units directed an extremely heavy volume of fire onto the advancing troops. But the civilian irregulars and Special Forces troops, using sound infantry tactics, outmaneuvering the enemy and gained fire superiority. Fighting continued until tactical aircrafts attacked. The enemy broke off the fighting and headed for the Cambodian border, withdrawing south to a landing zone where medical evacuation was accomplished, and reinforcements were brought in. The reinforced company then moved back into an area protected by Bu Dap's artillery unit to rest for the night. The results of this action was 40 NVA killed, 1 Special Forces soldier killed, 1 CIDG soldier killed, and 7 CIDG soldiers wounded. Colonel Charles M. Simpson's account, Deputy Commander, 5th Special Forces Group, as recorded in Poppy's Officer Efficiency Report. The Company A Mike Force is famous throughout the Republic of Vietnam for its fighting ability and repeated successful and courageous search for the enemy. On the 20th of February, Captain Yearout led a reinforced Mike Force company, which encountered a reinforced North Vietnamese Army battalion near the Civilian Irregular Defense Group camp of Bu Dap. The Mike Force outmaneuvered the NVA units, effectively fixing them until friendly airstrikes decimated the units. The NVA lost 40 killed by accurate body count at the cost of 1 USSF killed, 1 CIDG killed, and only 1 wounded. This type of action is attributed to the skill, leadership, courage, and devotion to duty of Captain Yearout. And this is Captain Yearout's first-hand experience of what happened at Bun Tun.
We were deployed back up to the border around Bu Dap, which is in Phu Quoc province, right up on the border of the 2nd Tactical Control Zone and 3rd. We were in 3rd Corps. And the A team up there was starting to feel some pressure and get intelligence reports that they would be overrun. So we were deployed. And then I think it comes out on the 17th. The 17th was when we were deployed. The action takes place on the 20th. That's about right. So what I did was that I had 3 sergeants, 2 staff sergeants, and a sergeant first class. The sergeant first class commanded the full company. There was 1 staff sergeant that worked directly for him, who commanded the reconnaissance platoon. And then there was another staff sergeant that did our heavy weapons. This is one of the first times. The little pamphlet in there, out of Vietnam Magazine, that's in there, talks about the Mike Force, has a picture with them of a 60mm mortar. That was a company mortar. With the battalion, we had 81mm mortars. Usually only could carry enough ammunition for one of them. So that's what happened. We were deployed. And my company with Sergeant Leon moved out, and along about 4:30 in the afternoon, we make contact with a reinforced North Vietnamese regiment, which means our roughly a little under 250 men are facing now about 3,000 in a regiment. And it's not a good idea. So the first thing is that we start deploying fire and fix the fire base. And Sergeant McCarthy, who had the heavy weapons, put them in position, and we began returning fire with 81 millimeter mortars, besides small arms and 60s. The North Vietnamese reacted with a McCulloch's rifle, and Sergeant McCarthy was killed. So now what we began doing is withdrawing back to a landing zone where we could be picked up. And the reinforced unit came in. And once we had some reinforcements, we were going to withdraw back toward the boot up out of the area, and also underneath where the Vietnamese could fire artillery. We could hear, because the jungle, very pristine jungle, you could hear a long way. We could hear the North Vietnamese regiment deploying. And we were fortunate enough to have Army Mohawks aircraft that had rockets. And so there are 18-pound warhead rockets. And we began to direct those rockets into our flanks. So we were kind of protected, keeping squeezing and surrounding us, really, until the Air Force came in with F-100s. And they began to drop 250-pound bombs. Very direct. I never will forget, it was a good friend of mine, was one of the pilots. And Bob Baxter was an incredible pilot. We were catching heavy fire and already had a helicopter shot down from a bunker they'd built with a heavy machine gun. If we put it into calibers, it Russian caliber would be, US would be a 58 caliber, big round. And we were getting a lot of fires from that, so we had to do something. And the next thing I know, that Bob's bringing that F-100 in over the trees to where you could recognize it, just like we're sitting here. You knew exactly who it was. And put a 250-pound bomb right through the aperture of that bunker. So now we got 20 minutes of light, and are informed by the Air Force they only have 2 aircraft left, 2 passes each, and both aircraft are armed cluster bomb units. So I get my sergeants together and we said, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "The only thing I can see to do is an attack." And there was just no question about it. It was like a voice from above intervened and said, "This is what you do." And I'd never even trained a night attack. We got all the troops almost online, and we would converge once we got to a road that we could move out toward the camp real quick. And we would take the jets and bring them in to protect our flanks and drop that cluster bomb units. It's like dropping 100. Each one of those bomb units carry about 150 hand grenades. Basically, that's what it is. And the first 2 make their pass. Then the other 2 had napalm, and they come in and drop napalm. And that covers the whole area, and also burns up the helicopter that's been shot down, so they can't get anything from it useful. then it's dark and we're moving back toward the base camp. We got a transmission call from, they were C-47 aircraft, old Douglas DC-3s. And they had miniguns called a Puff's Magic Dragon. They had flares and miniguns. And he flew all night long. It was overhead. And anytime that they would see any movement, any light, it was outside of our perimeter, they would let those miniguns go. And fired, it was 7.62. Fire about, I think every burst was close to 2,000 rounds. Because they had 3 of them out the side of the aircraft, and all 3 would fire simultaneously. And that really kind of protected us from being overrun. And sometime early morning, the North Vietnamese were through in Cambodia, and we got back to base camp, or the Special Forces camp at Bù Đọc. And after about 3 more days, it was obvious that the North Vietnamese, that regiment, was the one that was going to attack Bù Đọc. It wasn't going to happen.